Glenn Kendall with Concourse Hosting here, and today I'm going to be showing you this Tableau workbook that I created called Which Gift Proposals Have Changed Recently. This is available on Tableau Public, so you can click on the More Details section within the video, and there's a link to Tableau Public to download the workbook. Once you download the workbook, there's a dashboard, as you can see here, and then within that, there are 3 worksheets that I have hidden, so you can unhide them, and we'll go into the details of how all this works. So the concept behind this is that, if you have a gift proposal and you want to keep track of, sort of what's going on with your gift officers and their proposals, and something changes, you might not know what changed, especially if multiple things had changed. So this concept can be applied to really tracking anything within a gift proposal that may have changed, whether it be the date, the status, notes, whatever. In this particular case, we're just going to be focusing on the amounts, specifically the asked amount, expected amount, and the funded amount. And if they changed, this compares in this dashboard what it was before to what it is now. So we can see in this case, this particular proposal went up in value. This one went down, this one went up, and then I do color coding here for the different types, asked, expected, and funded. So just quickly, I can come in here and see, the asked amounts went up for a couple of these, it went down for one for some reason. Expected went way up, so that's good for these other 2 proposals, and so on. So behind the scenes here, I'm going to switch from the dashboard, click down here into one of the worksheets itself. The worksheets are all very similar to each other. They're just pulling in different amounts. So I'm going to focus on this particular one for asked, and just know it's doing very similar thing for expected and funded as well. So behind the scenes here, I'm actually connected to 2 different data sources. And this is really how I'm keeping track of the changes. So first I'll go ahead and click on the data source view over here just to show you. So I'm pulling proposals information from the Razor's Edge database. So I'm connecting directly to a database that has Razor's Edge data in it, and pulling out that from the proposals table. So in this particular case, I'm showing solicitor name because I'm joined to this other table, proposal solicitors, but otherwise all the data comes from the proposals table. So amount asked, amount expected, amount funded, plus these other things as well. I make it into an extract, and then what I've done is I'm leaving it as an extract in this case so that you can download it from Tableau Public. But what I do is I publish these to Tableau Server. So I publish the exact same data source twice to Tableau Server. So I'm going to click over here to Tableau Server to show you that. So here's just like a sample site that we have in here. And here's my data sources within this project. So I call the first one baseline, and then I publish the exact same thing again, and then I call that one delta. So baseline is going to be obviously the control. It's going to be what we're comparing everything against. And delta is what's changing. So what we do is schedule the refresh of the second database to happen more often. So I can click here and say refresh extracts, and then I can do it right now, or I can schedule it for a particular time. And that way you can tell what changed. So it's a really cool way to be able to keep track of, basically what's changing between 2 databases. And then what you can do is, at some point in time, say once a week or once a month on the weekend or whatever, you can catch up the baseline. And so, they're kind of both in sync again. So that's what's happening there. So I'm connecting within this worksheet, to both of these data sources, both the baseline and the delta. So normally within Tableau, you can only connect to one data source at a time on a particular worksheet. However, Tableau recently added a feature called data blending. And this is a really awesome feature that allows you to have multiple, a primary and a secondary data source within the same worksheet. To do that, you go up here and connect to new data source so that you have both of them connected. Then you just go to edit relationships, and it will, if you have one selected as your primary, it'll automatically decide the other one's going to be your secondary. And here's all the possible things it can blend on. And I just picked the defaults because, why not? They're identical, so we might as well just, blend everything together. So yeah, I mean, that's really the magic of how this is working, because they're the same fields and everything. I'm just, one just is being refreshed with newer data. That way I can track the things that are changing. Okay. So now let's hop in and take a look at what's happening on this particular view and some of these calculated fields that are happening in here. So on this view, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the difference. So the difference between what changed between the first one and the second one. So this particular one went up in value. This one went down in value. This one also went up in value. So the way I calculate that is, first I have to figure out what the amounts are. So we're looking at amount asked here. And in order to do that, I already have an amount asked field, but if I want to do it for each of the proposals that are in here, I have to create a calculated fields and do a level of detail. This is a, I won't say advanced, let's say intermediate concept, but it's super important if you're learning Tableau to learn about level of detail and how it works. So this calculated field here is associated with this data source. Calculated fields kind of travel with the data source, so it's telling you, hey, the major gift alert delta data source is the one this is on, and so I've named my calculated field accordingly. This is amount asked delta, and so the level of detail calculation itself, I'm using fixed, and then doing proposal name and status both. So I'm not going to go into the details of what all that means on level of detail. I'll have a separate video about that, I guess. But yeah, just know that we're using a level of detail calculation here in order to get that. So that's amount asked, and then level of detail to get that for each proposal within the delta data source. Similarly, up here in baseline, I have the same thing going on. I've got amount asked baseline. This is exactly the same thing. It's just using the other data source, major gift alert baseline, same level of detail calculation. Again, those travel with the data source. So I've made baseline ones that go with the baseline data source and delta ones that go with the delta data source. So in addition to that, I have some more calculated fields here that first determine, hey, did something change or not? And secondly, if something did change, how much did it change by? So the first one here is, did something change or not? So that's this calculation. So I call it changed amount asked. It's basically saying, hey, if the amount asked for the delta, this calculated field, equals the amount asked baseline, then false, else true. Because I want to know if it changed, right? So I'm kind of doing it backwards. So if these are the same, they haven't changed. Otherwise, they have changed. You'll notice within here, because this, again, is within the major gift alert delta data source, when I specify amount asked delta, I just put the field name in there. But when I'm referring to the blended data source, I need to first qualify it with the data source name dot the field name. And then that way I can compare two calculations from two different data sources blended together. Super powerful ability. It's really cool. Tableau added this feature recently. So this just tells me, hey, did the amount change or not? I'm using this up here as a filter. And so I drag that up to the filter. And then I'm saying if it's true, go ahead and show that value. So it's only showing those values where something has changed. I also have another thing in here in the filter, which is just basically filtering out nulls. There happen to be some null data in there. So if your data isn't super 100% clean, you can use that to filter out the nulls. Okay, so that's the first part really, is to figure out, did something change or not? If something did change, then how much did it change by? So that's what this field does. This is the difference between the two. So it's simply taking the amount asked and subtracting the amount asked on the baseline. We have to do it as a sum, just because when you're doing it in a calculated field, you need to do it as an aggregation. But because these are level of detail, these sums are going to be not really a sum. It's going to be just summing itself. It's just the one row. If you didn't do a level of detail, then it would be summing across everything, and you wouldn't be able to get this to work. So the level of detail behind the scenes is really the magic. So once I have that amount asked difference, then I put that up here on the columns. The rows are the proposal name. And I'm also putting the amount asked difference as a color. So that way we're showing, a color range based on, did it go up or down? One additional thing that I'm doing on the color is I am centering it. So I put the center at 0. So that allows this to go the other way. This is my 0 line, so the bar goes in this direction if it's negative, and then this direction if it's forward. Yeah, to do that, you specify a center line there. That's pretty much it. These other things are really using within the tooltip. So I'll just click on the tooltip real quick to show you what's going on in there. So in the tooltip, I'm showing the proposal name and the status. The previous amount, that was the baseline amount. The current amount, that's the delta amount. And then the change, that's the difference between the two. And so when we mouse over, we get those values there. The rest of it's just really formatting. I happen to put the amount asked difference as a label in here. And then also on all of my money values, I changed the number format to be currency custom with no decimal places and display thousands of units. And, the rest of it is just kind of fine-tuning the look and feel and stuff. But those are really the key elements behind making this particular workbook come to life. Expected is doing exactly the same thing, just with expected values and funded. And then we put it all together here into this dashboard. So hopefully this gives you some ideas about how you can use this for your gift proposals and for tracking other things that that may be useful to you for tracking, like dates that may have changed or really anything that will have changed in there. So thanks for watching. Click on the link to subscribe to hear about more videos, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot.